Ah yes, Fire Emblem. Everybody's favorite Smash Bros. Spin-off. Let's be honest with ourselves, these games are usually pretty easy. Sometimes the first few chapters can be rough, but once your units get strong, they can usually murder entire armies while you browse Twitter on your phone. But what if we use the Yune randomizer to make the game just a little bit harder? Yune has a feature where you can increase the enemy growth rates. You see, enemies in Fire Emblem are not actually static entities. When you have an archer at level 12, that enemy has its stats artificially leveled up 12 times from predetermined base stats. So while an enemy archer may normally have 20% chance to increase HP per level, I added a 50% growth to all enemies. That means that archer now has 70% chance to increase his HP per level, I think. This should allow later game enemies to drastically increase in power, while theoretically leaving the early game enemies close to the same. I began the game with Lyn, who has been randomized into a Pegasus Knight, which is great because she can fly, she has weapon triangle advantage on the first couple of enemies, and she can still use her sacred weapon once she class changes and can use swords. And she only does 3 damage to the boss at this level. Uh-oh. Okay, that wasn't supposed to happen? He was supposed to die there? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Sure, we'll just do it again. We'll take it from the top. This part of the game wasn't supposed to be hard. It's never supposed to be hard. It's literally a tutorial. And sure, I could have re-rolled until I got a combination of enemies that Lyn could beat and progress. But instead, I spent 30 minutes beating the tutorial level. The enemy boss does 6 damage and also poisons Lyn, which means she dies in 2 rounds and needs to eat a vulnerary every single turn to heal, of which we have a very limited supply. She also only has a 60% chance to hit, and while technically the boss has a lower hit, that's just not how the cards want it to work for me. And even though Lyn could technically poison the boss, that wasn't actually adding any damage because the boss was standing on a throne tile which heals him each turn. So I had to actually land my hits if I was going to win. But finally, a miracle happened. We play it safe always. We would never not play it safe. He crit me! I shouldn't have played it safe! Yeah, he got that 6% crit. And no, that's not the only time it happened. I already lost the odds on the whole birth gender thing. You'd think my luck would finally be turning around. Eventually, through sheer dashing my head against the boss, we triumph. Patience and perseverance. And we were rewarded with Kent. He's a nomad archer with pretty decent stats, which I was excited to see. Sane, on the other hand, died doing 0 damage to an enemy actor. I could have saved him, but I decided nothing of value was lost. Then we got the Manikati, which magically transformed into a lance Lyn could actually use. Let Will die a gruesome death, and got our first healer, Florina, who I will point out has 8 defense and takes no damage from many of the enemies at this point in the game. Sure, I'll tank with my healer, I guess. Everyone magically came back to life for the defense level, only to once again die horribly so that we may proceed. And Dorcas joined as a pretty strong mercenary. I really thought this defense level would be the run killer, but things were going really well. In fact, one of the reinforcements spawned in with a red gem, and since each reinforcement is a carbon clone of each other, they kept spawning in with them, leaving me with so much money I had to literally throw some out to make room for the rest. 1% problems. After that, I exchanged my tank healer for a much weaker one with a horse, because who cares about stats when you have movement? It's Fire Emblem after all. I stole a new poison bow off Eric and promptly murdered him. This will be a decision I come to regret later. I was living the high life and nothing could possibly stop me. It was at this point that the randomizer decided to softlock me. Matthew normally joins the thief, and to make sure you don't get stuck, Yune always gives thieves a chest and door key. Unfortunately, Matthew only has one door key, and you need at least 2 to beat the level. And none of the enemies had one. That one enemy did, but I had no way of stealing it from him. Lost and unable to continue my run, I took a break for the day, hoping a solution would reveal itself in the morning. Yeah, I used an action replay code to exchange one of Kent's many poison bows for an infinite use door key. Does this void the integrity of the run? Not really, and if it did, who cares? My name is shamelessly Lynette. I'll cheat all I want. With that taken care of, the rest of Lyn Mode was fairly easy. We recruited Niles, grinded into level 7 for the bonus level, and honestly, he was one of my strongest units. Look at those stats. I wish we got him back later. He's gonna disappear and I'll never see him again, which is very sad. We recruited Wallace, our third mercenary, and the level was randomized to have Fog of War from turn 1. Because the randomizer added Fog of War to this level, when the Fog of War was supposed to come in, it added extra Fog of War. So yeah, I huddled in this corner, fearing Dragon Knights flying out of the darkness, and couldn't even use my torch staff until most of the reinforcements were dead because my healer needed to keep taking vulneraries every single turn. Wallace was a godsend for tanking during the huddle phase, but Dorcas started to get jealous of our new mercenary, and I couldn't let Wallace get in the way of the Dorcas supremacy, so... And just like that, we had reached the final level. Lyn flew over the mountains to flank Ludgren's troops while Dorcas and Kent fought side by side through rain and mud. Our units were kicking ass, and in a final act of desperation, Ludgren sent a wave of thieves after us, trying to rob us of our vulneraries before the final showdown. Ludgren himself put up a valiant fight, defying the odds as long as he could. Seriously, how did I miss those? But Kent ended up putting one final arrow through his neck, ending the fight once and for all. However, I chose to have Sarah heal a little extra for experience. Perhaps that was the reason we didn't arrive in time to save Lyn's grandfather from his end by poison. His death reminded me of the many times Lyn herself died of poison in the first level. We've come so far, and yet did we learn anything at all? There is no resetting this death. We just have to move forward, and one day perhaps we will meet again. But while I have you here, what did you think of the video? Personally, I think it could have been better if I had massive titties and thick thighs like Lyn. The great news is, if you subscribe to the channel, I can start hormone therapy, and someday the videos can be improved with a glorious boob window. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Invest in our future together. It'll make you happy, I promise.